The blue lights of hyperspace flickered outside the small ship's window as Zara pressed her 6 fingers against the cold metal wall. Her silver skin caught the light, creating small rainbows across her face. She had been running for 3 months, now jumping from system to system, but she knew he was still coming. Commander Jake Sullivan was different from other humans. Most of his species gave up after a few weeks of chasing someone across the galaxy. But Jake was stubborn in a way that both frightened and amazed her. He had followed her through 12 star systems, past 3 different alien governments, and into the most dangerous parts of space. Zara's people, the Villani, were known for being the fastest runners in the galaxy. Their long legs and light bones made them perfect for quick escapes. But running in space was different. It required ships, fuel, and credits, all things that ran out eventually. She looked at her fuel gauge and felt her heart sink. 2 days of power left, maybe 3 if she turned off life support in the cargo bay. The nearest friendly planet was 5 days away at minimum power. She would have to make a choice soon. The communication system buzzed. Zara knew who it was before she answered. "Zara, I know you can hear me." Jake's voice came through the speakers, calm and patient as always. "We need to talk." She had made the mistake of answering his calls in the first few weeks. His voice was warm and kind, nothing like the cold military officers she expected from humans. He never threatened her or demanded she surrender. He just asked her to listen. "I'm not going to hurt you," he continued. "I just want to understand why you took the data crystal from our research station." The data crystal sat in a secured box next to her pilot seat. Inside it were the plans for a new human weapon that could destroy entire planets. She had taken it to prevent a war between her people and the humans. But how could she explain that to him when her own government had branded her a traitor? 3 days ago, she had intercepted a transmission from the Villani High Council. They had put a bounty on her head, claiming she was working with human spies. Her own people wanted her dead or captured. The humans thought she was a thief. She was alone in a galaxy that wanted to see her fail. Jake's ship appeared on her sensors, still following at a respectful distance. He could have caught her weeks ago with his military cruiser, but he stayed back, matching her speed, never getting too close. It was like he understood she needed space to think. "I've been reading about your people." Jake's voice came through again. "The Villani value honor above everything else. You wouldn't have taken something unless you had a good reason." Zara closed her eyes. How could he know her people so well when most humans barely knew the Villani existed? She had spent years studying human culture, learning their languages, understanding their customs. But this human seemed to understand her better than her own kind. Her fingers moved over the communication controls. Against her better judgment, she opened the channel. "Why don't you just arrest me and take it back?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because I think you're trying to prevent a war, not start one." The words hit her like a physical blow. How could he possibly know that? She had been so careful, so quiet about her real reasons for taking the crystal. "The weapon plans you took," Jake continued, "they're for something called Project Starfall, a planet killer that some idiots in our military wanted to build. I've been trying to stop it from the inside, but I needed proof it existed." Zara felt her breath catch. A human military officer trying to stop his own people from building a terrible weapon. It seemed impossible, but his voice carried the weight of truth. "You could have asked," she said. "Would your people have listened to a human asking for help?" She knew the answer. The Villani High Council barely tolerated humans. They would never have worked with one to prevent a human weapon from being built. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we work together. I have friends in the human government who can help destroy those plans permanently, but I need you to trust me." Trust. Such a simple word, but it felt impossible after months of running and hiding. Zara looked at her fuel gauge again. Even if she wanted to keep running, she would be stranded in empty space within days. "There's a space station at the edge of the Kepler system," Jake said. "Neutral territory. We can meet there, talk face to face. If you don't like what I have to say, you can leave." Zara knew the station. It was run by the Traders Guild, a group that stayed out of political conflicts. If Jake tried anything there, the guild would protect her. It was probably the safest place in this part of the galaxy. "How do I know this isn't a trap?" she asked. "Because if I wanted to capture you, I would have done it already. My ship is faster, my weapons are better, and I have 3 other human vessels waiting in nearby systems. But I'm not here as your enemy, Zara. I'm here because we want the same thing." She studied her sensor readings. Jake's ship was alone, no other vessels in range. Either he was telling the truth, or he was taking an enormous risk by meeting her, without backup. "1 hour," she said finally. "If you're not alone, if this is some kind of trick, I'll destroy the crystal and myself with it." "Understood. Thank you for trusting me." The communication channel closed, leaving Zara alone with her thoughts. She set course for the space station, her hands shaking slightly as she worked the controls. Everything in her Villani training told her this was a mistake. Never trust an enemy, never give up your only bargaining chip, never stop running when you're being hunted. But Jake Sullivan wasn't acting like a hunter. He was acting like someone who genuinely wanted to help. In all her months of running, no one from either side had offered to listen to her story. They all assumed they knew why she had taken the crystal. The space station grew larger on her view screen, a massive ring spinning slowly in the darkness. Dozens of ships from different species were docked there, traders and travelers from across the galaxy. It was a place where conflicts were supposed to be left at the door. Jake's ship was already there, docked at one of the smaller ports. He had arrived first, showing that he wasn't trying to surround her or set up an ambush. Another small gesture, but it meant everything to someone who had been running for so long. Zara docked her ship and made her way through the station's corridors. The gravity here was lighter than human or Villani standard, making her feel slightly weightless. She kept the data crystal in a secure pouch at her side, ready to destroy it if necessary. The meeting room Jake had reserved was in the neutral section of the station, monitored by guild security. When the door opened, Zara saw him for the first time in person. He was younger than she expected, maybe 30 human years, with kind eyes and a face marked by worry lines. He wore a simple civilian outfit, not his military uniform. Another gesture of trust. "Thank you for coming," he said, standing as she entered. "I know how hard this must be." Zara remained near the door, ready to run if needed. "Tell me why I should trust you." Jake pulled out a small device and placed it on the table between them. "This contains evidence of Project Starfall, including communications from the officers who want to build it. They're planning to test it on an uninhabited Villani colony world." The word sent ice through Zara's veins. An uninhabited colony world meant one that her people planned to settle in the future. Destroying it would be an act of war. "There are people in both our governments who want this conflict," Jake continued. "They think a war will solve old problems, make them more powerful. But they're wrong. A war between humans and Villani would destroy both our species." Zara moved closer to the table, studying the device. "What do you want from me?" "Help me stop them. The crystal you took contains the final piece of the weapon design. Without it, they can't build Starfall. But they'll just try again unless we expose the whole conspiracy. And if we're caught, then we'll probably both be executed as traitors." The honesty in his voice surprised her. Most humans she had met tried to make dangerous situations sound safer than they were. Jake was telling her exactly what the risks were. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because it's right. Because I've seen what war does to people, and I don't want that for either of our species." He looked directly at her, his eyes serious. "And because someone has to stand up to the people who think violence is the answer to everything." Zara felt something shift inside her chest. For months, she had carried the weight of preventing a war alone. Now, someone else understood. Someone willing to share that burden. "What's your plan?" she asked. Jake smiled for the first time since she had entered the room. "We're going to steal a human battleship and broadcast the truth to both our governments at the same time." Despite everything, Zara found herself smiling back. It was the most insane plan she had ever heard. It was also the only one that might actually work. 2 days later, they were aboard the human battleship Meridian, having convinced the captain that they were on a secret mission to test the ship's defenses. Jake's military reputation had opened doors that would have been impossible for Zara to pass through alone. The plan was simple in concept, terrifying in execution. They would use the ship's powerful communication array to broadcast the evidence of Project Starfall to both human and Villani space simultaneously. The conspiracy would be exposed, the weapon plans would